I'm going to do my review of Clerks 3. So, a movie that Nick did not get a chance to see. So here you have Clerks 3, the third film in the Clerks franchise. The Clerks franchise, which has spawned an animated show before, 2 sequels so far. The first movie's in the National Library of Congress when it comes to, you know what I mean, being restored forever as a film. So that's pretty amazing from Kevin Smith, who, you know, it was a real passion project for him. The first Clerks movie came all the way out in 1994. That film did.
Yeah, the year I was born. And Kevin Smith, he was kind of like one of that new breed of Hollywood. These like younger directors who just grew up loving films, didn't really have much formal education. He came up alongside guys like Tarantino, like Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah, you know, guys like Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino. I believe also wasn't Wes Anderson amongst that group too, like Wes Anderson.
I think he was, yeah.
Yeah, Wes Anderson, and things like that. So yeah, you know, you had to kind of, you know, Kevin Smith come with those kind of revolutionary directors in the 90s, very much reflective of that kind of period it was in and that time that it was made. And I haven't seen the first Clerks movie in, man, years. I haven't seen that movie in years. And then the second one I haven't seen also in years as well. So it's kind of been a minute. But with watching this third Clerks film, the premise of it basically takes you to the journey of them remaking the very first movie, because it details all about the character of Randall, who suffers a heart attack. And you know, because he suffers a heart attack, he's like, you know, he kind of has a kind of awakening and going like, I kind of like, what have I been doing with my life? You know what I mean? What have I always wanted to do? And I've, you know, watch all these movies all the time. Like, how about I actually make a film? And that's what he ends up doing. And in the movie, he ends up writing and making the first Clerks movie. And, you know, when you kind of look at that premise, you may think like, oh, that sounds kind of hackish, you know what I mean? Or, you know, something that's kind of contrived or something that's kind of lame. But when you actually kind of go through the movie, it is really about these characters and the journey they've been on all these years together. And it does get very emotional, and especially towards the second and third act, it gets really emotional, and they do a very good job at portraying those emotions, especially from the two leads. Especially you have Brian O'Halloran, who plays Dante, and Jeff Anderson, who plays Randall. They do, I think, a very good job at that. And I kind of love that. And I kind of love them, you know, kind of going back and making the first movie again. Because if you watch the first movie, you'll see, you know, some scenes that they do over again and they kind of reference again and everything like that. And you almost think it's also, you know, very reflective of, you know, this being a very personal passion project for Kevin Smith again, you know, filmmaking wise, because, you know, he also was somebody that had a near death experience himself. And you had to think that, you know, he's brought a lot of that into making this movie in Clerks 3. And you see kind of, you know, like I said, you know, where these, you know, their lives are now. Like Dante, who was with Rosario Dawson's character, who was in the second film. You see it in this film that her character is now passed away now. And how much emotional trauma, you know, that is for him. Especially you got to think, because I mean, you lost somebody that you absolutely loved, and the person in life, and also because that was Rosario fucking Dawson. I mean, you ain't never gonna find a chick as good as Rosario Dawson. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, that's Rosario Dawson. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, you kind of see a lot of that, and I thought that was very well done. Especially for people who I thought that, I mean, a lot of the Clerks movie, I mean, you wouldn't say that. I mean, I don't think anybody from, you know, the Clerks film has gone on to like become really hugely successful actors in terms of, you see them in tons of other projects. It's like mostly you just see them in the Kevin Smith verse there. But I thought that was like, yeah, I thought that really kind of hit me there. what's kind of your experience? I know you didn't see Clerks 3, but kind of what's your experience with Clerks there, and, or Kevin Smith filmography?
Yeah, Clerks and to an extent, Kevin Smith. He's one of those directors that he is very very hit or miss. I think Chasing Amy is probably the best thing he's ever done. That movie is fucking brilliant. I have a very soft spot for Dogma, and that's mostly because George Carlin and Buddy Christ, which is amazing. But then for every film that Smith does that is great, he gets us something like a Tusk or Yoga Hosers. So he's either knocking it out of the park or it's just terrible, awful, awful, awful.
Yeah, I mean, people been saying that this Clerks 3 film is his best film in years. Again, I guess that's not hard when your competition is Tusk and Yoga Hosers.
It's not exactly a high bar to. It's not exactly a high bar to clear. It's like you're going up against Tusk, Yoga Hosers, and Red State.
Yeah, which I heard Jay and Silent Bob. I didn't see it, but I heard Jay and Silent Bob reboot was pretty decent. I didn't see it, but I heard it was pretty decent. So yeah, again, that's not that's kind of hard when you're dealing with that in your filmography very recently. But yeah, I mean I can see it. I can definitely see it. I can definitely see kind of the passion and kind of love that's there of that going back to the beginning again. And I don't think it's done in a way that is, just for nostalgia's sake. I think it's done in a way to show, that progression in life and just that history and love for it, and kind of where you came from. So I kind of like that a lot. So for me, I would give it a strong tune in. For me, I did very much like it, and I think some of this humor is not gonna land with everybody. Some of the stuff kind of didn't land with me, humor wise, at the beginning of the movie almost. Again, you're gonna do the conventional Kevin Smith stuff of a lot of weed jokes, a lot of Star Wars jokes. Maybe some gay jokes they're gonna be thrown in there. Maybe what I mean. That's just typical kind of Kevin Smith stuff that you're gonna have there. But because some of that stuff didn't really hit with me all that much. But yeah, I still thought it was a strong movie, and I don't know if it's how dependent on it is if you're a big fan of Kevin Smith's filmography, because there's some people who just they just love him, they love his filmography. Like I said, I think his filmography, like with you, for me, I think it's hit or miss. I think his best movie is Chasing Amy as well. But Kevin Smith as a person, as a guy, I think he's pretty cool. From what I've seen, I think he's very funny. Like when he does his one-man shows, or not one-man shows, I shouldn't say, but when he goes up, does speaking engagements, like when he tells the story about Superman and how he was writing for Superman. I think that story is very funny. I think he's a funny guy, and I do like his He-Man show when he did with Netflix. I like that as well. So yeah, for me, I would give it a strong tune in for me with Clerks 3.